Hi guys, I'm Priya Rao. I'm the beauty editor at Glossy and Digiday and the host of the Glossy Beauty podcast. So to my left, I have Demi Shi-Guth at Tmall and Alibaba. I have Maza, who is the co-owner of Olivia Garden, and I have Phoebe Song from Snow Fox Skincare. So before we get started, I thought I'd let each of these lovely ladies give us a little spiel about their companies.
Hi, I am Demi Shi-Guth. I work for the Alibaba Group under the core business units, which is the Tmall and Tmall Global. My role with the company is really to help American beauty and personal care brands to sell into China. We are the #1 e-commerce platform, B2C e-commerce platform in China. Like we just mentioned, we have about 700 million mobile users on a monthly basis.
Hi, my name is Maza, and I am co-owner of Olivia Garden. Olivia Garden was started in 1967, so we are 52 years old. It was started by my parents, and they decided that they were going to make high-quality salon professional tools. So our company makes brushes, scissors, blow dryers, appliances that are used in the salon. We are currently in 100 countries around the world, and both mostly professional and also have some localized retail distribution in those countries. We have offices in Belgium and in San Francisco, California.
Hi, my name is Phoebe. I'm the founder of Snow Fox. My company is only 2 years old, and this is the first year we're actually increasing our retail exposure in the US. We originated in Asia, and we are doing the opposite. We are coming to America.
So perfect. So I guess to get started, all of you guys are in very different segments of the beauty and personal care space. You know, older heritage brands, younger emerging brands, and obviously the platform side. So when you think about international expansion or even coming to America, you know, what are the top of mind priorities or challenges that you're thinking about first?
Me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, we're gonna do this.
Go ahead, Phoebe.
Okay. So as a baby brand, we launched at the end of 2016. We only had 3 SKUs. We are in the clean beauty space, which was highly competitive. So America for us was like something we had never touched, but we noticed that the US media had been picking up on our products. So the first priority we had in the US was to test the retail market by focusing on media. So that was where we started, and now it's become incredible. So we've had a crazy 2 years. And our strategy really is to go media to retail channels.
So we originated in Belgium. So our export strategy was Belgium, then the rest of Europe, then America. America was added on to our distribution strategy in 1985. It was a different world then than it is now. But I think that the way we did it, which is to actually physically locate ourselves in the country that we were trying to really penetrate, was the right way to do it, because it's really hard to just think that your business model that's been successful in Europe will necessarily be successful in America. So we had the luxury to be able to move to America to actually do that. And then from then, we've acquired enough market knowledge to be able to go on to other countries. I mean, obviously we can't move in every country that we want to get distribution in, but finding the right partners that are going to get you the distribution that you need and coming up with the right strategy with them, as well as making sure that, you know, they're going to be working on your behalf to bring your brand into their country is really key, because again, something that's worked in Europe and has worked in America is not necessarily going to work in China or in Israel or in Colombia or you know, anywhere else in the world. I mean, every country can be different. Some things are the same and some things are different. So don't assume that because you're successful here that it's going to be the exact same thing model over there. You really got to find out how that country works and find the right partner.
What about you, Demi?
So as a platform, I would say our strategies are apparently very different than the brands, because we're actually the one who helps the brand to go global. So my priority, you know, is really to help American beauty and personal care brands to understand the China market, what kind of potential is out there, and how we can help you as a platform, as also one of the biggest company in China, to help you to get there. So China has become, the world's largest e-commerce ever since 2017, with a total gross merchandise value of 5.69 trillion. And the market size is forecasted to reach like 8 trillion USD by 2020. So by 2020, our middle class population is set to reach 400 million, which means a great opportunity for international brands, I would say, because the demand for imported products always levels with the growth of consumers' shopping, power.
Right. So when you're thinking about these different markets, whether it's the U.S. for you, Phoebe, or maybe Costa Rica for you, and what kind of localization tactics are you using? Is it about using the right distributors? Is it about using local influencers or marketing agencies? How local and specific do you have to get to understand that market?
So for us, we really focus on clean beauty retailers. The clean beauty space is a rather new trend that has just kind of started worldwide. In America, is already very well established, but plant-based, clean, what is clean, how clean is clean, these are all really new things that are just starting to really cement. So when we come here, the first thing we look for is, are you a retailer that understands what we do? Clean beauty brands should be in clean beauty retailers, and it's strategic in how we place ourselves. The media is the same. You use influencers, KOLs that basically understand the clean beauty space. We would not be using, for example, in the media, influencers that, are more makeup based when you're dealing with clean beauty and skincare. People really, especially in clean beauty, our customers are sophisticated. They read. They know exactly what they want. So when it comes to positioning a brand, especially in a country like America, where the movement is already very well established, you really need to know what kind of content you're putting out. Right. So,
what about you, Anne?
So for us, again, it's really key to find the right partners. In terms of marketing the company, we have a global strategy that we use, and then we also add a local component. So we will work with local influencers, but with our distributor in order to come up with the best strategy, because how am I to know who is the best person in India to be, promoting our brand? You could be making a big mistake by aligning with somebody who maybe recently had a scandal or something that you would know about that would have a negative impact, right? So working with local with your distributor who knows the right way to reach their marketplace locally, and just lending them an arm with sharing the marketing that you maybe have already generated in other parts of the world that can benefit them, so they don't have to recreate everything. They could reuse some of it and create some of their own.
So Demi, obviously Tmall and Alibaba is somewhat of a one-stop shop for this in China. So how are you kind of onboarding brands, especially emerging brands, which may not have the resources of, say, a L'Oreal or an Estee Lauder or a Shiseido?
So I think, from my experience talking to brands and our retailers, our partners, people usually it's hard and it's challenging for people to really understand what Alibaba means to them, especially for people are, outside of China. Many of you may know us as an e-commerce company. I know Alibaba.com because, some of the beauty brands may order like packages from that website. But today we are actually much more than that. We're definitely the largest online and mobile company in the world, and our company's mission is to make it easy to do business anywhere. So in the Western world, there's not really a perfect analog, that's similar to what we do. So in the US, our strategy is to really help. It's all about to help a business from all sizes to sell into China. So one important point for everybody to understand is that we primarily acting as a marketplace. We're not a retailer. So which means our interests are completely aligned with small business, with the brands or like any retailers on our platform. So within the Alibaba ecosystem, not only that we provide the brands the infrastructure, and also the marketing tools, the analytical stuff, the traffic, the payment, the logistics, and even cloud computing. The customer who gets, the brand who gets on our platform, they own the experience with the customers. We are the one who just provide them the infrastructure for them to be successful. And with us, we, like I said, because we're primarily functioning as a marketplace, only if our brand partners are successful, then we will be successful. So we're always on the same page as the brands. Here in the US, we also have 2 teams, one in New York, one in Los Angeles. I am actually based in New York for beauty and personal care category, and we also have a full coverage of all categories here to really interface with the US brands and to work with them to find out what's the best solution for a brand to enter the Chinese market. And based on, to answer your question, based on their objectives, based on the objectives of a small business, we can always customize an approach to ensure that it's an easy market entry. And also, we work with them and assist them during the process to educate them about the consumers, the market trend, and to really find out what's the potential in the market for their products as well.
So Phoebe and Anne, I mean, on that note, both of you are kind of expanding your distribution here in the US. You, Anne, via the consumer channel from the professional hairstylist channel. Phoebe, you with your increased presence here in the US. When you think about the retailer piece, how important is that retailer piece, not just a marketplace, but a retailer in creating that brand awareness, creating that marketing strategy, getting in front of the right customers?
So the reason why we choose clean beauty retailers is that they already have an existing customer base that knows what you're about. It basically cuts away so much of the extra work you need to do, especially when you're new in a new country and also a baby brand. So my brand is different. We are not very old. We launched at the end of 2016 with 3 items. Now we have 12, and we're expanding to 15. So that's in the space of 2 years. So right now in the US, we have signed with Anthropologie, Goop, and Credo. So these are if you're familiar with these 3 retailers, you'd be knowing that they're very distinctly high up in the retail base. So.
What about you, Anne?
I definitely agree that finding the right retailer is important. Maybe when a company is starting out, you're happy to just get an order and to fill it and to get business going. But I do think that it's important to make sure that the distributors that you pick or the retailers that you pick are in line with your strategy. So in the professional space and analogies, there are some distributors who wanted to sell our brand at the beginning when we could have been gladly gotten their order and helped us kind of get going, that we turned down because we felt like if we went there, it would shut other doors off for us. And it turned out to be a great strategy, so that we did pass up pretty big business, but in the long term, it made our brand stronger by picking the strategic partners we picked. So it's hard when you're new to turn down business. I get that, but sometimes if you have a strategy that's very specific, you really ought to stick to that, because in the long term, it helps. So in doing the transition, adding a retail aspect to our brand where we make some of our products available to the high-end consumers, we're doing the same thing, is that we're really targeting the high-end consumer that's going to appreciate our brand and the brand value that it's acquired over the years, which we feel like long-term is better than just selling to anybody who's willing to buy it.
When you think about, other platforms or marketplaces like here in the US, like Amazon, when you think about how they are obviously expanding globally, do you think that that's a mechanism and a tool to use to expand globally as well? Or even Ulta as they go into Canada? Either of you.
Okay. So we are on Amazon, but we don't find it an issue with Amazon affecting other retail groups, because Amazon is so extensive. Also, Amazon customers and all the other customers are so different. So yes, we'd be more than happy to grow into other global sectors, Canada and all that, with Amazon. So yeah, it's definitely a yes for us.
So my experience with Amazon, a platform on which we have many authorized third-party resellers, is that again, you have to be careful with the pricing strategy because, they are great at offering you distribution, which is great, but if you have a certain strategy in your pricing structure, you just have to be careful because you want to maintain your brand value. And the platform is a great platform, but it's obviously set up to have the buy box, to win the buy box, to be at the top. You can lower your price to be at the top. And a byproduct of that can lead to price wars on certain products. And it depends on how you manage your distribution. That means you need to know who you're selling to and where your product is going. And again, sometimes having those tough conversations with customers. But Amazon is obviously here to stay. It's a great platform to use. But it's a double-edged sword, and you just have to be careful with it. It could be perfect, but just make sure your brand value stays consistent.
Demi, I know that you guys at Tmall and Alibaba have helped create localized products for brands like Estee Lauder, Kiehl's, or the L'Oreal Group, tailored for that Chinese customer. How important is that for the Chinese market? And of course, Anne and Phoebe, are you thinking about localized product for specific markets?
I think it's definitely very important and necessary to customize your assortment for a certain market, because every market is very different. For example, the Asian community still, as of today, let's say people really like products that, they can put on their skin and make their skin look fair. So if you have a tinted sunscreen, let's say, here I know people in the US love tanning products.
Bronzers.
Yeah, or bronzers, so probably wouldn't work as well. Maybe there are very niche, customers, profile that may suiting to that category, but in general, I would say definitely it's very important to work either with your distributor or either with the platform to find out a perfect assortment for that market to better target your audience. We say this because we have massive data, to show what the trend is, what people are looking for, what kind of trend they're falling, and as like you said. We have actually we collaborated with the L'Oreal Group in China based on the search that we have seen within the Alibaba ecosystem. We created actually a male skincare line, which actually based on the data, the conversion rate is actually so much higher than the traditional way of launching a new product and without really knowing what their audience wants.
So Anne, on that note, obviously you sell professional hair tools, brushes, blow dryers, straighteners. In Asia, the hair market is very different than, say, Brazil. So how are you doing that, and how are you deciding?
Yeah, so again, it goes back to what I said at the beginning, which is you have to know your marketplace and you have to have the right partners. But there are differences, as you're saying, in the hair types. There's also differences in cultural preferences. For example, we have two very different markets. We have a huge market in Taiwan and we have a huge in India. Both of them want brushes in boxes for completely different reasons. In Taiwan, they want hairbrushes to be retailed in boxes because it looks fancy and higher end. In India, they want them in boxes because it's so dusty everywhere that they can't keep the brushes clean while they're waiting on the shelf to be retailed. Very different reasons why they need a box, especially India being so price conscious, but we got to give them a box so that the product can stay clean. So those are differences that you would never know if you don't do your homework, because in that same situation in America, I sell those brushes without a box extremely successfully. So again, I can't say because I do it here like that it's going to work over there. Another example is in Dubai or in other countries where you can't sell boar bristle brushes because of cultural issues. We have to deal with that as well. Again, if you are ignorant of what's happening locally because you didn't do your homework or don't have the right partner, you could be making a big mistake and launch a boar brush line in a country where it's illegal to sell boar bristle brushes. So you better do your homework. But then there's also the differentiation between the hair types, sure. And again, you just figure out what makes sense for your product category and adjust accordingly.
What about you, Phoebe? What are you thinking about?
The Kardashians. So my favorite example of this exactly is, so fun fact, fun fact. So we did our first LA show ever, me and one team member from my staff, luggage. We did our first US show in LA last year in the beginning. We had no idea what we were doing. This was our first US show ever. It was my second time in LA. So Kourtney Kardashian picked up one of our masks and blogged about it. Now, when I say Kardashian in the US, I can already see all the eyeballs and everyone's perking up. In Asia, when I do this on a stage, everyone's going to look at me and go,
Right.
It's not the same. And this is what I mean by localized content. You know, in America, Kardashians are such a big thing. You have different KOLs here, you know, you have different influences here. The Kardashians hold a power here that, you know, is not matched in Asia yet. So we are very careful to curate the content. So for example, the Kardashian thing was a great lead for us. That was our first US show, and that actually kind of structured our first steps in the great US of A. Whereas in Hong Kong and Taiwan and, you know, Japan, we structure the content so differently and the brand positioning. So this is a perfect example of what, you know, works in the US, but maybe not so much in Asia.
Are you thinking about localized product at all as well?
In terms of product, because we are a sensitive skin brand, we were founded on the basis of being really good for sensitive skin. Sensitive skin is a global issue. We have not had any issues yet localizing product. I personally don't do whitening products. I know whitening products in Asia is like a big thing. As an Asian myself, I disagree with that entire thing. Like, I refuse to make a whitening product or a lightening product because I feel like in Asia we don't have yet the right understanding that your skin tone doesn't relate or equate to how beautiful you really are as a person. So I'm probably one of the earlier or newer brands, you know, founded by a younger woman who's working against that stereotype. I don't think you need to be white to be pretty.
Applause. When you think about, you know, obviously you're stretching your limits here and when you're going into different countries and different markets, but what about the protection aspect? Because, you know, obviously you may have a patent or a design patent or manufacturing patent in Australia or in China or in Belgium, but when you go into different countries, you have to do that in each country and think about your design so that competitors don't create the exact same product for a cheaper price. How are you guys going about that?
Personally, I'm good because we have a proprietary technology in Taipei in a lab sealed behind 4 hazmat doors. So we have been copied many times. So I'm not going to lie, like the moment you put your product out there, someone's going to copy you. Like, don't even take it personally. Someone's going to copy you, the packaging, they're going to copy the name. Like we had this issue once where somebody literally took our logo and like they took out my fox face because my logo, if you guys are familiar, it's a geometric fox with Snow Fox skincare underneath. So they literally cut and pasted my logo and put it on another name. Now the problem with that is my logo is actually a geometric sketch from an actual fox. So the dimensions are perfectly unique. Now it was meant to be a tattoo, which I then chickened out on. So it was very easy for us to make a claim. Our fox face is actually trademarked in Australia and in Hong Kong, which then basically helps us in that region, obviously in the US as well. So it's very easy for us to make a claim and say, look, you could call yourself, you know, vegan fox or whatever, right? But you can't not use my trademarked icon. That is mine. So far we have been pretty good. No one has been able to make something that we have. For example, our sheet masks. It's easy to make a sheet mask in 2 seconds. I'm telling you, sheet masks are everywhere in Asia. Can you make my sheet mask, right? No. We've been really lucky in the sense that my laboratory has been so protective of its secrets. So again, it's really your lab. Who are you working with, right? Do you own the lab? Is it a partner? Now, I'm really close to my chemist, who's a Taiwanese woman. So she is so personally aligned to my brand that she would never, ever give out our formula or anything like that. So this is how I protect our IP in terms of trademarking, in terms of formula and structure. And I think any new brands should really look at investing in that relationship with their supplier. Because if you don't have a good relationship with your supplier, how do you know? They're not going to white label your formula in about 2 seconds. So.
What about you, Anne?
Yeah, so I definitely echo what you say. IP protection is huge. So we have over 50 different patents on our product. When we launch a new product, it takes us anywhere from 2 to 6 years to do all the R&D and the developing, because we take a hairbrush developing like it's a scientific thing. So we have engineers on staff, and we really do our due diligence to come up with something unique and different and innovate, which takes, like I said, 2 to 6 years, and usually over $250,000 to actually bring a product to market, because everything we do is unique and different. So being the leader in our category, we obviously are copied, or people try to emulate what we do a lot. So we've learned a long time ago that although protection is expensive, it's well worth it. And not only do you need to get protection, but you also need to be able to enforce it and be serious about enforcing it. We even had a dispute that we won, but ended up going all the way to the Supreme Court in Korea, and we won successfully. Somebody had copied us, but had done it in such a clever way that we had to take it all the way. I mean, it took 5 years, but we were successful. Well, you better know that now nobody in Korea is going to mess with us, because they know we're serious. So it was a big investment. It was very stressful. All the legal documents needing to be translated from English to Korean, from Korean to English, you know, all that good stuff. But anyways, in the long term, we succeeded, and that was well worth it. So when we develop a product, not only do we get protection, unfortunately, it's a lot of time it's by country. There are a few countries that are within the same protection, but usually it's by country. So we get protection in the countries where we have the biggest opportunities for revenue, as well as the countries where we could possibly be copied. That way we're protected both at the source and at the sale. And we're hopefully, and that doesn't mean we get every country. Even for a company our size, you know, honestly, we can't afford to register everything in every country. We have way too many. And then you have to renew those registrations. It's not like a one-time fee. So I would say as a smaller brand, it's maybe hard, again, to find the funds to do this. But if you have an idea that's unique and that's protectable, it is well worth it to do it, because you will get copied, and then your heart will break when you've come up with a great idea and somebody is taking advantage of it and can legally do it, unfortunately, because there are loopholes and ways to get around things, especially if you don't have protection. So highly recommend being protected.
Demi, obviously this is happening a lot in China. So what are your suggestions to combat that there, and, you know, make specialized products and experiences that cannot be replicated?
Yeah, so just based on what Annie has said, it is definitely very important to protect your brand and your technology. The way we have, you know, come across a lot is one thing is the trademark of a certain brand. Because many people probably, some people doesn't know in the US that, you know, in China and Europe, trademark is by first file versus first use in the US. So anybody could take a few $100s and just register your trademark. Then you could end up with a legal case with them for 4 or 5 years. Or you can spend enough money at a later stage when you decided to enter that market to buy it out from the third-party trademark owner. So I would always suggest a brand, regardless you're selling to that country or not, always, you know, register your trademark in the country. And I think there is also a Madrid protocol where you can just register with that international trademark and protects you in many countries under that protocol. So it's definitely important. And also as Alibaba Group, we actually have an IP protection platform where we can help brands or international brands who are interested in entering the country or who has trademark issues in the country. We have a platform for you to access all the Alibaba certified, you know, IP attorneys. There are all top tier IP attorneys that have been working with our platform to help the brands who have that kind of needs at a very reasonable price. We're just building the bridge for international brands and actually helping them, providing them the resource to solve the problem.
So I think we just have a few more minutes. I just wanted to open up for questions before I hog these women up here. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if we have another mic, but I can come down. Okay, great.
Hi, my question is, how is it with testing regulations in China, for example, when it comes to animal testings?
I'm sorry? Sorry, I can't
Test regulations in China is a little bit different. So my question was, how is it when it comes to animal testings? Let's say your brand doesn't want to do testings of animals.
That's actually a great question, because from my experience during the years, I often got told by brands that we don't sell to China because we're a cruelty-free brand and we don't want to get our products tested on animals. So this was no longer the case anymore ever since 2014, because we have a new business model called the cross-border e-commerce business model, where international brands can sell to China directly by shipping your products to a bonded warehouse in China. And you will not get taxed until your product is actually sold to the end consumers, and they will be the one to pay, the cross-border tax, which is actually much lower than the general trade. Traditionally, yes, you do have to have a legal entity established in China. You do have to get your product registered with the China FDA, which means you have to get your products tested on animals. And you do have to do Chinese labeling in order for you to sell. But today, cross-border business, it's no longer the case anymore. You can use your overseas local country entity. You do not have to label the packages in Chinese. You can sell it in its original packaging. And you do not have to do China CFDA registration at all. So that's one of the advantages Tmall Global as the #1 cross-border B2C platform. That's the solution we provide for international brand.
Yes, right here.
Hi, could the suppliers on the panel talk anything about what they know regarding trade partnership organizations?
Can you repeat that?
The suppliers on the panel, can they comment at all on trade partnership organizations?
I'm sorry, we can't.
Like a trade partnership organization from a country that might take suppliers to another country?
Oh, trade partnership suppliers.
No, trade partnership organizations.
Trade partnership organizations. Do you work with any trade partnership organizations?
So in our case, we have one partner per country. So we don't work with any organization. So one person gets a distribution for the whole country, and usually they just cover one country. We might have some small countries in Europe that are covered by the same person when they're really small, but usually we just have one importer and distributor per country.
Phoebe?
We mainly distribute ourselves to different retailers, so we don't work with organizations much either.
I think there's a question right here.
I just have two comments. Sometimes the United States Department of Commerce, that's looking to promote exports, organizes trips to different parts of the world with businesses to promote your product. I think that's more the way of doing that than actually organizations. And I just want, first, thank you, Demi, for talking about the Chinese trademarks. I'm a lawyer practicing in this field. It's really critical for any of you starting out immediately, not 2 or 3 years down the road, but immediately to register your trademark in China, because they follow the registrations in the US, they register it immediately, and then you have to try to buy it back. And my last point is just to make it clear that the system of patents to protect inventions of the kind you're talking about is a very different process than registering your trademark, which is a trademark process. So you have to be clear on inventions versus your brand. And the two do not relate to each other. So just make sure that you're doing what you need to do. If you have an invention, to protect that. And if you have a trademark or brand, you should be protecting that.
I do have something about
Go ahead, Ann.
that question. Yes, so I'm sorry. We have worked in Brazil with the U.S. government, and that was before we had our distribution. So we were able to go down there. It's a really hard market to get into Brazil because it's very tightly controlled, high barrier to entry. And we went in with them, and then we did set up a distributor, and then now we just work with them. But we've used them in Brazil.
Does anybody have any other questions? I actually have one more before we wrap. When you think about investing resources in people, yourselves or team members, and taking, either field trips or home visits, how often are you guys doing that? And, what does that require on the ground from your own teams in terms of manpower?
So do you mean like media?
No, I mean like actually like going to each country and sales support, retail support, all of that. Like how much of an investment is that for each of your companies and brands?
So I flew in from Asia 2 days ago, over 20 hours. I have 4 more trips coming up to 4 different countries. So I will be flying back to the US once a month for the next 3 months from the other side of the globe. So in terms of investment, it's not really just about money. It's about how much physical time it takes up. But if you're an emerging brand, if you're a new brand, my biggest advice is get your hands dirty. If you're the founder of a new brand, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you just launched in the last 2-3 years, there is no way to avoid getting your hands dirty. I was in the jungles in northern Chiang Rai in Thailand a week ago. Okay, digging up herbs with my hands with the local hill tribe guides. And today I'm in New York, and next week I'll be in Hong Kong. The week after that I'm in Korea. So it's not even about the money. You just have to physically be there. Be there, work with your partners, work with the media, work with anybody that's based in those countries. Because as a founder, only you can do that. There is no replacement for the founder. And especially if you're a new brand, then you would know. The competition in the last 2-3 years, I feel like every second person I met is becoming like a brand owner. So this is something you get your hands dirty. Do it yourself.
Anne?
Yeah, so I definitely echo that and think it's crucial. We are a well-established brand, yet we spend countless of hours or days with our customers around the world. So in just the last 2 weeks, we were in Australia, New Zealand, Colombia, Costa Rica, and my brother, who's co-owner with me, is leaving for India tomorrow for another 1-week trip. So we are constantly, luckily we have a team that lets us divide and conquer, like we like to call it, be everywhere, because you need to be on the ground with your distributor. We've had distribution in all those countries, of course, and they do fine, but once you go there, you just take it to the next level. Not only do they appreciate your presence, they'll understand your product better, you can train their staff much better, and then you can show them in the marketplace what your product is all about, what you can really do. So again, time and money, but money well spent. And don't overdo it, don't take on too much, do one thing really well, and then go on to the next thing. But I highly recommend going out in the field and seeing what it's all about.
And Demi, I guess from your perspective, have you seen the brands that really are successful on Tmall are the brands that are spending that time and those resources in China on the ground with the customer?
Yes, most of the time, probably, I would say the brand, even though we see, I would say probably over 90% of the cases, brands are more successful if they work with a local distributor, or we call it trade partners, Tmall trade partners. Indirectly, basically they are working for the brands, not directly reporting to the brands or working for the brand, but they're like a partnership. But I would say the brand at least needs to have a dedicated team member to work with that distributor for that country. Luckily, Tmall Global, we actually offer a list. Actually, I think it's like by today, it's 180 of certified trade partners for international brands who are interested in going into that market and who needs a partner for that market and who has experience in the industry as well.
Perfect. Thank you all so much. It was great having me.